I want to tell you about a place that is called the Lycos Valley. Lycos is a name that means wolf. So a friend of mine just reminded me that this place, the Lycos Valley, could be called the Valley of the Wolves. Interesting title. And there are 3 towns in this valley. And I want to see if you can get a picture of them because they remind me of something else a bit closer to home. But there are 3 towns. One of them used to be the center of an important trade route. And then something happened and a new trade route opened up. And that town shrunk in size and it became just a little village. And there were 2 other towns close by, about 10 miles away, that took away a lot of the importance from the town that I want to mention. And these 3 towns in the Lycos Valley were about 100 miles from a major city. I wonder whether you can hazard a guess as to, first of all, what towns I'm talking about, and secondly, what towns closer to home they might be like. The 3 towns I've been talking about are Laodicea, Hierapolis, and the one that was the village, Colossae. This is the one to the town that is least important. It was like a village. Now, does that remind you of anywhere else? Does it remind you of anywhere closer to home? As I was thinking about this, I was thinking of our little town of Bawtry. Bawtry used to be an important trade route. It used to be, in fact, as some of us remember seeing the sign some time ago, a 12th century port. And then one of the things that put paid to that was when the railway was built, the East Coast Main Line, and that cut off the port that was on the River Idle from bigger ships being able to come in. There was a railway station in Bawtry, but there were also railway stations in 2 towns that are about 10 miles away, a bit like the distance between Colossae and Laodicea and Hierapolis. And those towns are Retford to the south and Doncaster to the north. But there was one other thing I told you about. This village of Colossae. It was about 100 miles from a significant town. And we are, 150 miles from London. And Colossae was about 100 miles from Ephesus on the coast. And we know if we go to Revelation, we'll read about the church in Laodicea, the Laodicean church that was neither hot nor cold, lukewarm. But what about this church in Colossae? And Paul hadn't visited this Lycos Valley before, but he had heard of the church from a man called Epaphras, whom we read about later on in chapter 1. And Epaphras probably may have been a convert of Paul, and he may have founded not only the church in Colossae, but also the church in Laodicea and the church in Hierapolis as well. And Paul got to hear of this church while he was in prison in Rome. He was visited there by Epaphras. And Epaphras probably went to him to get some help with false teaching that was affecting the church in Colossae. We're not sure exactly what this heresy was, but we can pick out the threads of it, the bones of it, from the content of Paul's letter. You see, this letter is highlighting the preeminence of Jesus Christ. One commentator has written this: the most dangerous heresies the church is called on to combat from time to time are not those which openly and blatantly attack the person of Jesus Christ, but rather they're those which detract from his deity while giving the appearance of honoring him. That's what was happening in Colossae. That's what Epaphras needed Paul's help to combat. Where does Jesus Christ sit in your life? What place do you give him? Is he number one, or is he just two or three? Is he there among others? He's eminent, but he's not preeminent. Over the coming weeks in BCC, we're going to be looking under the title of One Track Life. We're going to be looking at Colossians. We're going to be studying it. We're going to allow God's Holy Spirit to open it up to us as we learn more about what it means to worship Jesus Christ, the preeminent one.